Thank you to the sponsors of this video, Nexus Paving Systems, CleanLink and Smart Seal. You'll find links to all the products used in this video, as well as discount codes on all the materials and equipment I use, down in the description. I'll be honest, I was a little bit disappointed when we turned up at this job, because back in March when I originally quoted the work, the patio was a hell of a lot dirtier, it had loads of moss all over it, loads of algae, and it would have made a fantastic before and after transformation. But this customer actually slipped through the net a little bit, but that was down to my poor communication. And then since then our lead times extended, the customer ended up having to wait about 2 months before we could fit them in, and now 5 months later we finally got round to doing the work. But since we quoted it originally, they've obviously wanted to enjoy the patio over the summer, and so they've pressure washed it themselves. And the reason I'm a bit disappointed, selfishly, is because now my before and after pictures might not look so impressive.
First world problems.
And it doesn't actually save me a job because I've still got to pressure wash it and chemically treat it the way we like to do it anyway. So that was a little bit disappointing, but not a big deal. So on this one we're going to be grinding out all of the failed joints from that old jointing compound that's been used. We're going to clean it, chemically treat it, and then we're doing the full shebang on this one. We're going to be applying 2 coats of clear sealer to help enhance the colour of the sandstone, which you'll see makes a massive difference on this one. And then we're going to finish it off with a 2-part epoxy jointing compound to help give this customer a little bit more longevity over some of those other products. Grab yourselves a drink, get settled in, and I hope you enjoy this transformation. Mate, I treat you well, don't I?
We've got all the gear today. We've got these new masks and stuff. I'm going skateboarding or something. Bad boys on.
Nice little knee pads.
These masks, goggles as well.
I thought it's going to be super hot today, so the last thing we want to do is wear our full face masks and get all sweaty and stuff. So we got to grinding on this one, and we're using 6.4mm mortar rakes that we got from Screwfix. This is a little bit more than 120 square meters of sandstone if you include the 2 pads at the bottom, and we weren't even starting with fresh discs on this one. We could have got away with just using 1 disc each, because pulling out this old brushing jointing compound is so much easier than if these joints were made out of sand and cement. That cheap stuff is only really designed to last for about 2 or 3 years, and then if you're pressure washing it as well, and the frost, it can get compromised and fail even sooner than that. So to be honest, with the 2 of us grinding this patio, it was an absolute breeze. We got it done in no time. But like I say, if these joints were made out of sand and cement, it would be a hell of a lot harder. We'd go through a lot more grinding discs, we'd get way dustier, and it would take us a lot longer. So when you're quoting these jobs, you have really got to take into consideration how wide the joints are and what material was used, because that's going to massively dictate the length of the job, and also how much jointing compound you'll need to put back in there. You can see here this lower pad was installed at a different time, and this one was made out of sand and cement, but it was a very, very soft mix. But just to demonstrate, you can see the difference with how much more dust is coming out of these joints. It really is a lot messier. I can't believe how quickly we've managed to get that done actually. We've pretty much done the whole top area. Jakey's just finishing this bottom bit, and then we've got the 2 pads down the bottom. I thought it might as well be worth just swapping these over, because they do get a little bit thin after a while. These are only about 18 quid from Screwfix. We get they do 2 different types. They do the 6.4mm ones, which are the ones we get, so that's how they should look. That's how they get after a while. And all we've got left to do today, clean it, blow it all off, chemically treat it, and then we'll come back in a few days to seal it. And then after that, we'll come back in a few more days to apply the jointing compound. Mate, we've absolutely smashed it. 2 hours.
2 hours.
To grind out 120 square meters of sandstone. Pretty crazy. This is our JSP Force 10 mask that we got off Amazon. and we're using ABEC 1 P3 filters, and we'll be running our soft wash solution through our X-Jet attached to our Rutland pumps switch tip. Now the reason why I'm pre-treating this patio is because it's pretty clean anyway, but also it's going to save us an extra rinse. So if I were to wash this patio first and then rinse it off, then treat it with the chemical treatment, we'd have to rinse it off again. Whereas if I pre-treat it and then wash it and rinse it, we're saving a whole extra step of rinsing, and on a patio of this size it can save quite a significant amount of time. This won't always work if you've got a heavy buildup of algae or lichen, because the chemical might not penetrate all the way through to the bottom layer of organic staining, and so you might find you end up having to use too much chemicals treating it before and after, where you could have got away with just treating it once at the end. Each job is totally different, and you've got to learn to be dynamic and adapt to the surface type and the condition of the patio. Every time.
Every single time. It's bloody birds. The shit's filmed all that.
Yeah.
Disgrace. Worst we've had.
Now this is the star of the show. It's Smart Seal's Gloss Wet Look Sealer, designed specifically for natural stones like Indian sandstone. Now sandstone's a funny one. It doesn't necessarily fade over time like limestone, for example, because it's colour fast throughout. But what customers will notice is when their patio's clean, Indian sandstone always looks amazing when it's wet. But then when it dries out it can look very faded and the colours are quite muted and dull. So to try and bring out the colours and keep that damp, almost wet look finish, we're going to apply a few coats of this Smart Seal Wet Look Sealer. And these types of sealers are quite versatile, because if we weren't happy with the depth of colour or the glossiness, all we have to do with this sealer is increase the number of coats, and the colours will gradually get more bold and it will increase the sheen on the surface. Generally we use a pump sprayer to apply this type of sealer, but I wanted to get a bit more down, and I think you can get more product into the surface by rolling it on, and I think I can also achieve a slightly more consistent finish with the roller, because with this water-based sealer what you don't want to do is leave any pooling or puddles, because there's a risk it won't cure properly in those areas, or it will leave a slightly hazy finish. The other benefit of using a water-based sealer like this one is that it's not as sensitive to temperature and moisture like some of the other solvent-based sealers. There's virtually no risk of trapped moisture or blooming with this type of sealer, which is a massive plus in my opinion. There are occasions where I'll try and talk the customer out of sealing, because sometimes it's not actually the best solution for the surface, and more importantly not the best long-term solution for the customer. These products aren't cheap, and so I'm always honest with the customer as to whether I think they're going to get a good value for money out of the service. But on this particular patio, I think it was a great idea to have it sealed. We achieved exactly the finish the customer was going for, and going forward it's going to help prevent all that bird mess and organic staining from absorbing into the sandstone because it's a very porous stone. It will help keep it cleaner for longer, and it'll be easier to clean next time it needs doing. So I think it was a great decision on this patio. You might be noticing what look like black spots and various marks all across this patio, but when you get a bit closer you'll notice they're actually fossils, and the customer chose this type of paving on purpose because they thought the fossils added character, and I agree. It's always nice when you spot them, and this sealer is going to help to accentuate all those little details and make it look really beautiful. When I first started, I didn't realise that these were fossils, and so I'd try chemically treating them and pressure washing them over and over again, and then got frustrated when they weren't disappearing. And this isn't the type of stuff you can learn by asking questions on Google, and it's not very often discussed in Facebook forums. You generally learn these things on the job and through experience. But if you are in the industry, or you're just starting out and you're looking for a few tips, or you've got some potentially silly questions that you think are going to make you look stupid, we've got a perfect place for you. We run a private Discord community with over 400 members, people with various experience levels. Some people have literally just started, or they're thinking of starting, all the way up to people who would consider themselves professionals in their field, roof cleaners, people who specialise in wood care or render cleaning. And we created this community to help each other out, and I honestly believe it's the best exterior cleaning community on the internet. You can ask questions without feeling judged, and it's really quick and easy to get answers from people who have made those mistakes before so that you can avoid them. If you're interested in joining this amazing community, or you'd like to have a direct line to ask me questions on a daily basis, you can get access to the full Discord for £5 a month. All you have to do is click the join button underneath this video, or if you're an Apple user, click on the link in the description. Second coat going down, it's looking brilliant. Looking great. We've had some, this gutter was dripping, and it was splashing all the sealer around, and it was leaving like a dry patch. So I've had to like tape up some cloth up there, and it's worked. You can see what I mean better in this corner, look. This is where the water's been dripping from up there, and obviously it's been diluting the sealer so much it's not managed to sort of impregnate into the slab. But now that's fixed, I can put some more sealer on there. So the next morning we loaded the van up with 10 tubs of Nexus Titan. We left the house at 6:30, we wanted to get an early start. It was going to be about 28 degrees, and although the patio was going to be in the shade for most of the morning, we didn't want to take any risks with the temperature. Nexus have actually put a warning on their website about decreased curing times because it's been so hot recently. And the last thing you want is for this stuff to set on the face of the slabs, because I've seen some horror stories. It can be an absolute nightmare to remove. And just like when we came back to seal, there's loads of leaves and bird mess all over the patio, and this is quite a regular occurrence when you're sealing stuff, because generally you have to leave it 2, 3, maybe 4 days before you can return to seal, and by that time the customer's driven on the driveway or the leaves have dropped off the tree, and it's just something you want to keep in the back of your mind just so you're not caught out or surprised on the day. This is where a damp rag and a leaf blower really comes in handy. The last thing you want to do is drench the surface again, because then you'll be waiting another few days for it to dry out. When we're installing the Nexus Titan, we do want to keep the surface wet, and so we drench it with a low pressure hose, and you can really see the hydrophobic effect that the sealer gives to the Indian sandstone. The more a surface can repel water, the more likely it is to stay cleaner for longer, and the less likely it is to absorb staining. So now we're going to move on to the jointing. I've tried a bunch of different pointing products from my local hardware stores, from Wix, B&Q, Travis Perkins, all those different ones, and I gradually found myself losing confidence in them after seeing how poor the previous installations by other contractors were after just 2 or 3 years. It was such a common complaint on these patios that, oh, this was only done 2 years ago and it started to fail already. And I just didn't want the customer talking about me like that in the next 3 or 4 years after I'd repointed their patio and installed this cheap generic brush-in jointing compound. No matter how well you do it, pressure washing it and frost and general wear and tear are all going to have an impact. But now that I'm using this 2-part epoxy mix from Nexus Titan, I'm so much more confident that this is going to offer the customer much more longevity. And even though it's a little bit more expensive per tub than the stuff I can get locally, I've fully made the switch and this is the only stuff I'm using now. And if it's not within my customer's budget, then unfortunately they'll just have to find someone else to do it. I was considering taking this clip out, but instead I've sped it up 4000%, just so that you can get an idea of how much brushing is involved on just this small pad. It really is back-breaking work, and when you combine such a big area with my terrible posture, the result is me barely being able to walk the next day. Don't take on these jobs lightly because they are very, very hard work. And if you've got a big project, don't be scared to bring more people in on it with you, so you can spread the workload. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've made it this far and you like this sort of stuff, whether it's just because you find it satisfying to watch, or if you're trying to pick up some tips and tricks for your business, please consider hitting the subscribe button so that you can see more videos like this one. And drop me a comment down below to let me know what you think of this transformation. See ya!